Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Banks, and today we're going to be looking at some articles by the World Socialist website, or the WSWS.org. I have two articles for you today. The first article we're going to be looking at today is titled, United Nations Says Israel Using Starvation as a Method of War, by Andre Damon, and this was written 12 hours ago. Israel's withholding of food from the population of Gaza may be a deliberate effort to starve the population, the United Nations' highest human rights official said Tuesday. In a statement, Volker Turk, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, says that the extent of Israel's continued restrictions on the entry of aid into Gaza, together with the manner in which it continues to conduct hostilities, may amount to the use of starvation as a method of war, which is a war crime. Turk's comments come as the rate of starvation and malnutrition surges throughout Gaza's imprisoned population of over 2 million people. According to Turk, the situation of hunger, starvation, and famine is a result of Israel's extensive restrictions on the entry and distribution of humanitarian aid and commercial goods, displacement of most of the population, as well as the destruction of crucial civilian infrastructure. Asked to reply Tuesday to Turk's statements that Israel may be using starvation as a weapon of war, U.S. Department of State spokesman Vedant Patel replied, "This is not something that we have observed or witnessed." I don't know if that is true. I don't think it's true. I think they have observed and witnessed this. It's the U.S. Department of State. He's lying all the way out of his. This absurd denial is contradicted by the reality. Yeah, it is an absurd denial. I didn't even read the next line. It literally says that's an absurd denial. It's so true. This absurd denial is contradicted by the reality of mass starvation imposed on the population of Gaza. A separate report published Tuesday by the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification (IPC) partnership, the official global body designating starvation, found the famine is imminent, with a major acceleration of deaths and malnutrition. The IPC assessment notes that 1.1 million people are expected to face catastrophic levels of hunger and risk famine in Gaza, the highest number of people in that category ever recorded since the beginning of current classification system. So we may be coming upon one of the worst cases of historical genocide in modern history with what's going on in Gaza right now. It's as far as like the sheer amount of concentrated murder going on. The IPC assessment notes that 1.1 million people are. Oh, hello. Here's my cat. I'm trying to read the news, little guy. You're kind of getting in the way a little bit. I'm trying to read the news. Yeah, that's my microphone. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to put you down, okay? Bye. See you later. This is the highest number of people facing catastrophic hunger ever recorded by the Integrated Food Security Classification System anywhere, anytime. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in the news briefing Monday. Before Israel's assault on Gaza, less than 1% of children in Gaza under 5 were acutely malnourished, but that figure has surged to between 12.4 and 16.5%. That's horrifying. And on social media, I've seen lots and lots and lots of videos of children eating grass, or there's one of a father who has had to dig through the garbage to find like potatoes and things like that. The report concluded, famine is imminent in the northern governorates and projected to occur anytime between mid-March and May 2024. The report found that every single person in the Gaza Strip lives with some level of food insecurity. The report projected that while the entirety of the Gaza Strip is currently in the emergency phase of food insecurity, the entirety of northern Gaza will be in famine within a matter of months. Israel is imposing famine on the population of Gaza in a multitude of ways. The most visible is through the imposition of a blockade that denies humanitarian organizations the ability to provide food to starving people. In a statement Tuesday, the Office of the United Nations Secretary General said that Israel had let in less than half of the humanitarian missions that the UN had planned to send to Gaza. During the first 2 weeks of March, Less than half of planned humanitarian aid missions to northern Gaza were facilitated by the Israeli authorities. That's 11 out of 24 missions, the statement said. The rest were either denied or postponed. Dispatching aid to the north of Gaza requires day-to-day approvals from Israeli authorities. The ongoing blockade is accompanied by the systematic and deliberate killing of aid workers. On Thursday, the Israeli military carried out the latest in its repeated attacks on the Kuwait roundabout, where the remaining population of Gaza City goes to receive food aid. Al Jazeera reported that 23 aid workers were killed in the latest strike, which local officials said was a targeted attack on food distribution centers. This attack on food distribution workers was accompanied by a full-scale assault on Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, which the Israeli military said left dozens of people killed, which I covered in my previous video. But even this bloodbath is just a down payment on what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has in store with the planned invasion of Rafah. On Tuesday, Netanyahu said he made it supremely clear to U.S. President Joe Biden in a telephone conversation that we are determined to complete the elimination of these battalions in Rafah, and there's no way to do that except by going in on the ground. Despite its rhetorical criticisms of Netanyahu's plans to invade Rafah, where over 1 million people are sheltering, the Biden administration has made clear that it will continue to supply weapons and funding to Israel no matter what it does. So, basically what that means is that the Biden administration is responsible for the genocide that's happening in Palestine right now. Joe Biden, you're a war criminal and a genocidal maniac. Just like Benjamin Netanyahu, both of you are Hitler. Both of you are Hitler. Both of you are Hitler. Literally, both of you are Hitler. In a press briefing Monday, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that the president emphasized his bone-deep commitment to ensuring the long-term security of Israel. Sullivan added, Israel has a right to go after Hamas, the perpetrators of the worst massacre of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Israel has made significant progress against Hamas. I can't even read that without laughing. That's so insane. That's so ridiculous. Earlier this month, Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of former President Donald Trump and one of his key advisors on Middle East issues, endorsed the prospect of expelling the population of Gaza from Palestine. Expelling, i.e. genociding. In an appearance at Harvard University, Kushner said it would be possible to get the population of Gaza into Egypt with the right diplomacy. He also raised the prospect of displacing the population of Gaza into the Negev desert in Israel, saying, the thing that I would try to do if I was Israel right now is I would just bulldoze something in the Negev. I would try to move people in there. I know that won't be a popular thing to do, but I think that's a better option to do so you can go in and finish the job. Gaza's waterfront property could be very valuable, Kushner said. And that's the end of our first article there. Really upsetting. I will be linking all of these in the description, so you can go and check those out if you want. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing and leaving a like on the video. You know, it really helps me out. It helps me have more motivation to spread this information around and know that people are watching and listening and other people care about this too. So our next article is titled, On the Eve of the Storming of Rafah, German Chancellor Scholz Backs Israel's Genocide, written by Johannes Stern 15 hours ago. Today, March 20th. Chancellor Olaf Scholz's trip to Jordan and Israel over the weekend once again emphasized the central role played by German imperialism in the genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza. After extensive talks and a joint press conference with Scholz on Sunday, the far-right Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that Israel would realize its plans for an attack on Rafah. And you've got that picture of, you've got the shady grin of Benjamin Netanyahu on the left there and Chancellor Olaf Scholz. You know, they both look like pieces of shit. No international pressures will stop Israel, Netanyahu declared during a meeting of the Israeli cabinet and threatened. If we end the war now, before we have achieved all of its goals, it will mean that Israel has lost the war and we will not let that happen. Netanyahu is literally using Hamas as a tool in this situation. He's using them as pretense and justification. Their existence of people who even barely can fight back against them. He's using that as full justification for killing all the civilians that are in Gaza. The Israeli military will operate in Rafah, he reiterated. It will take a few weeks, but it will happen. An attack on Rafah would bring the mass murder in the Gaza Strip to a new extreme. Around 1.5 million refugees are currently crammed into the southern city after the northern part of Gaza was almost completely bombed. The number of victims is already in the tens of thousands. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the Israeli army has already killed over 31,000 Palestinians in the first 5 months of the genocide, including more than 13,000 children. According to the United Nations, the entire population of the Gaza Strip, around 2.3 million people, is suffering from a high level of acute food insecurity as a result of the Israeli blockade. This includes 1.11 million suffering from catastrophic food insecurity, which we talked about in the last article there. The crocodile tears of Scholz and other leading German politicians about the suffering of the civilian population and the extremely high number of victims, Scholz, in Gaza cannot hide the fact that the German ruling class fully supports the genocide against the Palestinians. On the ground, the Chancellor repeatedly expressed his solidarity with Israel and the war aims of the far-right Netanyahu regime. Fascist regime. Netanyahu is a fascist. He's a fascist. He's literally a fascist. Israel has the right to defend itself against Hamas, he declared in a press statement in Jerusalem. The terrible attack on October 7 has caused terrible suffering. Hamas must not be able to resume such activities. That is why it must be able to be fought successfully. He made similar remarks at a joint press conference with Netanyahu. In these dark hours, Germany stands by the side of the Israeli people. He assured the prime minister, from day one, our message was clear. Israel has the right to defend itself against the terror of Hamas, and all hostages must be released, and this cruel crime must come to an end. Now, I was reading that Hamas at this point, they have not killed any hostages. They offered to release all hostages if Netanyahu agreed to a ceasefire, which he did not agree to, and that pissed off all of the families of the hostages when he literally deliberately was like, no, we're not gonna ceasefire. We're gonna continue to kill all of you. Netanyahu thanked Scholz for the friendship and support that Germany has given Israel in these difficult times. He also, that's back in after basically post World War II, the whole Zionist movement came out of Europe, and they were like, all right, guys, we're gonna do another white supremacist colonizer project. So we're gonna help you go and colonize this one tiny little bit of land in the Middle East. There you go. It makes sense, doesn't it? The lineage. He also left no doubt that Scholz and the German government support the continuation of the genocide. In joint talks, they had agreed that Hamas must be eliminated. There could be no future for the Gaza Strip, no future for peace, no future for Israel if Hamas, a terrorist organization dedicated to our genocide, remains intact. It's so ridiculous. That's so ridiculous. In response to Scholz' cynical remarks that alongside the military logic, there was a humanitarian logic to the planned assault on Rafah, Netanyahu was no less cynical. He assured the chancellor that the goal of eliminating the remaining terrorist battalions in Rafah goes hand in hand with enabling the civilian population to leave Rafah. When it came to protecting the civilian population and providing humanitarian aid, he agreed with Scholz' concern, claiming the Israeli army did more to minimize civilian casualties than any other army. That is ridiculous. That is so insane. I'm shocked. I don't know how to even respond to that. In fact, the Israeli army is waging a war of annihilation against the Palestinians with the full support of the imperialist powers. Leading Israeli politicians and military leaders have never made a secret of the fact that this is a deliberate policy. Netanyahu himself declared on October 28th, "You must remember what Amalek did to you." He was referring to a passage in the Old Testament that demands, "Now go and smite Amalek, spare them now, but slay men and women, children and sucklings." Literally go commit genocide. That's what that is. As early as October 7, Nissim Vaturi, and you know what? Let me get this out. The fact that he's using passages from the Old Testament to legitimize his genocide is no different from the 25% evangelical Christians in America that are also supporting his genocide, where these people are praying for Israel. Pray for Israel. Oh, let me pray for Israel. Let me pray and hope that they continue genociding all these people. Give me a break. Give me a break. As early as October 7, Nissim Vaturi, deputy speaker of the Knesset parliament, the member of the Foreign Affairs and Security Committee, called for the Gaza Strip to be wiped off the face of the earth. And on October 9th, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant announced that Israel had placed Gaza under complete siege. No electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. They were fighting human animals and acting accordingly, he said. Earlier, I saw a video of a father holding his child in his arms with their lower back ripped open with their intestines coming out. And that's what Netanyahu is doing. That's what you're supporting if you support Israel. You are supporting the murder of children. The same applies to the German ruling class, which committed the greatest genocide in history in the last century with the murder of 6 million Jews and the war of extermination against the Soviet Union. Now it is seamlessly continuing its genocidal traditions. Since the start of the war, it has not only backed the Israeli actions politically and criminalized the widespread opposition to them, but has also increased armed deliveries to Israel more than tenfold and sent its own warship to the Red Sea to support Israel's war policy. The real war aims go far beyond the destruction of Gaza. For Berlin and other imperialist powers, Israel acts as an extension of their economic and geostrategic interests in the Middle East and worldwide. Israel is literally considered a little Europe in the Middle East. That's how they view it, and that's how they viewed it when they started the project. The unleashing of the Israeli war machine is part of the larger plan to attack Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen and Iran, and to expand the war offensive against Russia and China to redivide the world among the imperialist powers. There is only one way to stop the genocide and the danger of the Third World War: to build an international mass movement of the working class against fascism and war and their roots in capitalism. In this manifesto for the European elections, the Socialist... I'm not going to try to pronounce that. The Socialist Equality Party, SGP, emphasizes: millions of people around the world have demonstrated against the genocide in Gaza in recent weeks, despite the propaganda from the politicians and the media, and have indicated how strong and globally networked the working class is today. This movement must be expanded and armed with a socialist perspective. We demand an immediate end to the siege of Gaza and the complete demobilization of the Israeli army. The holding of Netanyahu, Biden, Scholz, and all other war criminals accountable for their war crimes. I think they should all have their heads cut off, personally. The fight to unite Palestinian and Israeli workers in the struggle for a common secular and socialist state. And that is the end of our last article there. Thank you guys for joining me today in this video. I hope you found it informative. If you like what I do and you support the World Socialist website, then consider donating to them. I have personally just submitted my application to join the SCP, but that's more for my own personal, realpolitik, to be more pragmatic about what I'm doing with my life and what I'm talking about. And so I feel like it would be very useful for me to do that. So if you also feel like you want to do something about it, consider donating to all the other humanitarian aid groups that I have linked in the description. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.